breeze singing, c'est la vie. It feels just right. It's a brand new day. I can hardly wait. So for goodness sake, I think it's time. Yeah. Let's tell the world about it. Help spread a little light. It all comes back around. It feels so good to be alive. Up hills and over mountains, they'll know it far and wide. It all comes back around. It feels so good to be alive.
Welcome back to Where RV USA. I'm Russ Hicks, the host, and joining me today,
Craig Green. I'm a Presque Isle, Maine city councilor and longtime resident of Presque Isle.
so you're going to show us some of the recreation opportunities. There's some lakes just northwest of here. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're north and west a little bit. They're about 45 miles from Presque Isle. They're about 15 miles from the northern border, up near Fort Kent, Madawaska area. The biggest lake up there is Long Lake, and it has actually two communities, one at each end. Has a huge recreational footprint in the summer, and then as much so in the winter. It's got a golf course on one side of it. It's got two RV parks right on the lake. And then another RV park on an associated lake, Mud Lake, that's just below it. And so that's very accessible to someone traveling, and can be right there in the middle of it. The Lakeview restaurant, which was owned by the Drosiers, who since have passed, but their family has continued it on. And they have added to the restaurant, which has a view of the entire lake. Wow. Which is just gorgeous.
It's amazing, having been through the south of the country, from Southern California to Arizona to New Mexico to Texas. You get up here and you can't believe the green.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you guys ever get tired of it or not, but oh my goodness, the amount of green is just unbelievable. It's so beautiful and lush and
well, it is, and our to go hiking. I was telling you, my relatives are here from Colorado, and so they're very used to hiking in rocky soils, and so I took them up in the woods, and we went to the state Debully refuge area, if you will, they call it, and it's run by the state park system, but it's about 27 miles off paved road into the woods, and it's a mountain and it's some lakes. It has campsites. It limits RVs to 24 feet because it is in the woods, and it is a working woods with logging trucks and things of this nature. But it's absolutely beautiful. But when you're hiking around the lake and up the mountain, because of all the trees, the leaves, the spills off the trees and such, it's soft. And so my cousins were saying, this is like walking on a carpet, and it really is. And so it's an entirely different hiking adventure than they're used to. But they were just amazed at the sun coming through the trees and the leaves, and it's just really peaceful. Gorgeous. But it's very very comfortable. I mean, because you aren't walking on hard ground. Although you can hike up Mount Katahdin, which is the largest mountain in Maine. It's a mile high, and it's about an hour and a half south of here in the state park. So this is a very central point if someone came to visit, and especially if they had a tow vehicle with them and they wanted to tour the area. Within 3 or 4 hours, we've got a major Canadian city, which is very historic and gorgeous. We get in my car, and in about 3 hours and 45 minutes to 4 hours, I can be in downtown Quebec City. And in the winter, for the Quebec Winterfest, and they do their winter carnivals over a 2-week period in February. There's a long-held tradition from our area that they do the trek through the woods. And so rather than driving up to northern Maine and then down to Quebec City, they drive right straight across through the woods. They actually plow a road and they drive the 150 miles directly across through the woods, and they have it as a trek, which they've done since the 1950s. So you can go over into the Bay of Fundy, where they have the highest tides in the world. And you can be, in St. John or Prince Edward Island, or even over into Newfoundland, and those are all within, 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, depending on where you go. The ice caves that are up in Debully that I was telling you about, hiking in the Debully area, which is about an hour from here, it's the only site of permafrost left in North America. And so you can go up, and actually we were there last week, and it's 80 degrees out. You walk down into the depression where the little cave is, and all of a sudden the temperature drops 20 or 30 degrees because of the ice.
Climate. Obviously, you're very far north.
Yeah.
So tell me, do you actually get to experience 4 entire seasons?
Yes, we have. Well, spring is the iffy one. We kind of refer that as mud season, but we do have 4 distinct seasons. We have wonderful summers that are just absolutely gorgeous. Usually 70s and 80s in the summer.
That's why we came up.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. But our fall is absolutely breathtaking. The colors of the leaves and the trees and the foliage is. It's been written up in some of the magazines that it should be on your bucket list for things to see, the foliage in Aroostook County. That will occur somewhere usually around the first or second week of October for us. And it's absolutely breathtaking.
Tell us about the winters, because that would be an impediment to people that don't like cold.
Right.
But my wife was telling me that in talking to the local townspeople, that's a whole different lifestyle.
It is, because the whole area transforms from right now, which is lush, green, beautiful, to a veritable winter wonderland. I mean, everything turns white, but it's a clean white. Our normal winter is somewhere between 120 and 140 inches of snow. And we don't get it all at once, so it's spread out. It might start as early as late October with a storm or two if the weather turns, but it generally doesn't stay. And usually we never have an open Christmas, we call it, with no snow on the ground. But some years we have snow for Thanksgiving, some years we don't. But by the time that December rolls around, we're getting on to winter sports. And once you get into January, then things like ice fishing is big. And we have a local man-made lake just outside of town. And if you've ever seen the movie Grumpy Old Men, that's this lake. Because people drive their cars, their trucks right out on the ice. They go out to their ice shacks. My buddy and I, we actually built an ice shack together 3 years ago. We spent about $5,000 on it. It has a flat screen TV, electric heat. It's all. It's beautiful. It really is. But we designed it to fit in the back of a pickup truck, so you could slide it in and out, and has skis on it. And but it's so heavy after we got all the fun stuff in it that you couldn't lift it in the back of the truck if you tried. But that is a lot of fun. But the big industry here in the winter is by far snow sledding and snowmobiles. And people come from all over New England. In the winter we have families from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Ohio. I mean, they drive here because we'll have something more than 6,000 miles of snow sled trails that are groomed. And when I say groomed, that means that the snowmobile clubs, which in Aroostook County there's over 20, all go out and buy $250,000 tractor groomers, which you tow a groomer unit behind it, which is a big sled, if you will, that packs the snow. And so that leaves behind a 10 to 12 foot wide, or sometimes more, depending on the area, trail that's packed that they will groom sometimes on a daily basis in the winter. So you can ride your snow sled on marked, delineated with numbers trails all over Aroostook County.
So it's actually intended as a transportation web.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Just like the highway system, we've got trail numbers you know, a lot of times we'll get off work at, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. It's going to get dark probably just before 4
Right.
because of, the winter here. And get on the snow sled, and then we might ride like an hour to dinner or whatever. And but like I say, it's no different than getting in your car. It's just you're going to have on a
Sure.
snowsuit and a helmet. And as cold as it is in the winter, people from away will say, "Oh my gosh, it got down to 20 below last night, or 30 below, or the wind chill is 50 below, or something like this." The one thing I remember about winter is the fun. I don't think back and remember the cold.
My impression has always been that it's much easier to tolerate cold than heat, because you can always add layers.
Yeah, you can, but
If
there's
it's-
so much
if
you
it's
can take
100
off, and then it's a problem.
If it's 120 degrees, you can't get that
That's right.
non-clothed.
No. Well, not legally. But most businesses will subscribe to the snowmobile clubs and become members, and then the clubs will groom trails to their business. So a lot of the restaurants do. And then the lakes, like, of course, that right now are just, fun for boating and water skiing and jet skiing and all those things, all of a sudden become this frozen, tundra flat lake. And so then all the local guys, like me and my buddies, and so instead of riding the boat across the lake, you can ride the sled across the lake. And in fact, some communities are actually served more quickly in the winter than they are in the summer, because you simply just get in your car and drive across the lake instead of having to drive around it, And we have outfitters here that will rent snow sleds, rent outfits, set you up with everything, and then if we know that people are coming, those same individuals can also recommend tour guides or hook you up with a snowmobile club.
Well, we
and
got
get
you.
around. Absolutely, and I would be glad to take you. Absolutely.
I have to ask, what brought you to the almost the furthest tip of this country?
Well, I guess the big thing would be my parents. I was born and bred right here in Presque Isle.
And
so,
stayed.
Yep, and so we have a long family history on both sides of my family. My father's side being Irish and Scotch, and my mother's side being English and French. And
A lot of stubbornness in there.
a lot of stubbornness, and I think you have to have that to live here. But the original settlers to the area, a lot of them are part of the French culture, of course, and the Acadians that came here. And Acadia kind of is the larger part of the region of New Brunswick and in this part of Maine. And so that French population, some of them didn't stay, and they moved to Louisiana and became Cajuns, which is kind of a shortened bastardization of Acadian. So we have a lot of relatives in Louisiana area that are distant relatives of the Acadian culture.
I know that one of the transatlantic balloon flights left from this general area.
Right.
Correct? Tell us about the history of Presque Isle.
Yeah. So as far as aviation, the Double Eagle 2 was 3 gentlemen that decided they wanted to fly across into Europe, and they wanted to kind of do the same route similar to Charles Lindbergh. It's the first successful transatlantic balloon crossing, and held the long distance record for balloon travel up until 2017. And this flight took off in 1978. From Presque Isle, and we have a monument here, and they ended up in Misery, France, about 40 miles outside of Paris.
Wow. So tell us about Presque Isle.
Right.
How did it come to be? What's its claim to fame? Tell us about the community.
Yeah, well, Presque Isle originally was settled in the time frame of about 1822, 1823. That's when the first settlers started coming here by the way of the Aroostook River from Canada, and mainly for timber. Because timber was the big commodity. It built ships, it built masts, the big pines of Maine, things of that sort. And then eventually we had the Aroostook War in the area, and this is what they call the Bloodless War. One guy might have died of disease, but there was no shots fired and no one was hurt. But the reason being is at the end of the Revolutionary War, the entire outline of the country was delineated as what was there then, anyway, except for the northern tip of Maine, which was part of Massachusetts. And so, if you were a Canadian citizen, so to speak, then which would be on the British side, they would tell you that the Maine stopped about 20 miles south of here. And if you subscribe to being an American, then it would go about 50 miles north of what is currently the border or the top of Maine. So everyone in between was in no man's land. And so we ended up with the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, which people learned about in 1842, 1843, and that's what finally finalized the last border of the United States on the northern border. And that war was fought here, and it was fought because of a cow. And so the fight that kind of set things off between the two sides, the Americans and the Canadians, would be because Mr. Arnold decided that Mr. McRae's cow, they fought over it, and so by bringing in the Canadian constable, the Americans said, no, we are Americans and we do not subscribe to Canadian government until about 1843 when they finally settled the treaty. So at that point, development started, and then agricultural, and so potatoes started being grown as a crop. Aroostook County grows about 4% of the national potato crop. And so everyone thinks of Idaho, but actually the Maine potato on the East Coast is a very large staple in restaurants and grocery stores.
And this area, I'd never heard it referred to until we came up here, is the crown of Maine.
Yeah.
And if you look at the shape, you understand it.
Yeah.
But Aroostook County makes up the majority of that?
All of the top of Maine is Aroostook County, and it's about the size of Connecticut and Rhode Island put together.
Wow.
But has about 80,000 residents. So we have a lot of farmland and a lot of trees and a lot of forestry.
So people have a lot of elbow room.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Talk to us about industry. What do people do for a living up in this part of the world?
Well, we have a number of things. The number one employer in the area, of course, is healthcare, which isn't surprising today because there's so many specialties, and being about 160 miles from the next closest large city, Bangor. So that's kind of our largest employers, and we always have a lot of need of nurses, doctors, physicians, and some of them actually, interestingly enough, will come with RVs, especially in the summer, and stay. And it's kind of a thing with some of the doctors and nurses now that they'll actually use their housing allowance to purchase an RV to travel with. And they travel from hospital to hospital, and a good friend of mine does that actually. And so that's one industry that's always in need of people. But then our agricultural industry, the potato industry, for people working in that. So on one hand it's the farms, but on the other end it's the processing. Mm-hmm. So it's McCain's Corporation makes French fries and those little tater tot things that everyone likes and things like that. And we just have a new potato processor that's just moving into the area that's going to be looking for people to work there. And then broccoli is another big one.
Is that seasonal by harvest, or do they have
all
employment
year
round?
Yeah. And then we have the woods industry. And so that's everything from just straight pulp wood that's delivered places. And then up in the northern Madawaska, which is kind of the northernmost eastern city, that is a big paper making site. So it's certainly possible to make a decent living and to have a nice home, and and we're only as far away as someone really getting on the plane, because we have regional jet service with United Airlines right here into Presque Isle that flies to Newark every day. There's 3 different flights. So you know,
So you can get there from here.
you can get there from here. Yeah, or I was saying before, I say the big joke is you can't get there from here, and it's kind of true to a point. But not if you get on the plane. You can in an hour and 5 minutes we can be in New York City. We can do anything, you know. I mean, I can fly to New York City in an hour. I can go to Quebec City. I can go to the ocean. I can hike in the woods. I can snow sled in the winter. I mean, I guess it's putting your mind to the fact that you're going to have a lot of opportunities, and it's going to be a different one every season.
If you're considering summer destinations with your RV, the facilities, the options, the recreation opportunities are unlimited. This is a tremendous place to come because you'll find that the people are salt of the earth and really a pleasure to get to know. So this is Russ Hicks making a thumbs up recommendation for Presque Isle, Maine. Check it out.